Hello there, virtual space hero community, and all interested out there in the topic of hybrid work. So we have had a long journey this year. We started in January with a fantastic series with speakers and guests from across the globe talking and continuing to talk about hybrid work, hybrid leadership, and what we can do to navigate our organization into this new era of hybrid work. So last week, we just recently talked about the topic, how can we organize for a virtual organization, a virtual event on a global scale? We had two impressive guests with me, two experts on open space technology, and we discussed how we can use that in a virtual setting, virtual environment, and engage our employees before, during, and after. We also talked with Elise Keith, if you remember, we talked about a meeting flow model, which is a fantastic 6-step process on how to navigate your management team throughout the discussions on what kind of policies to implement when we talk about hybrid work. And today I'm excited. I'm super excited because I have two fantastic experts, thought leaders in the field with me here, who I am going to meet partially meeting in presence in Vienna in Austria, because there's a fantastic conference upcoming, Leadership Horizon Conference, organized by MDI Management Training and Haufe Group Incorporation. And this conference is about exactly what we're going to talk about today. It's about hybrid work and how we can embrace it and prepare our employees, our managers, and everybody to onboard on this new journey. So while we know that hybrid work is nothing really new, I've been studying hybrid work for 10 years. I have colleagues who have been studying hybrid work as researchers and professors for over 20 years. One of my guests today is a best-selling author, leading from anywhere. So there has been done a lot of work around that. But we also know that now, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, the game has changed. And also the way we see hybrid, the way we talk about hybrid, and what employees are expecting from our organizations has changed. And this is what today we're going to talk about. And without further ado, I'm going to say hello and welcome on the virtual space here, LinkedIn live stage, Marilena connecting from the outskirts of Vienna and David connecting from Oklahoma, United States. Hello there to both of you.
Hi, thanks so much for
Hi.
having me.
Thank you so much for taking time in your calendars, both of you. I do know that you're both very, very busy. Hybrid learning, hybrid coaching is your topic. Marilena, you're an executive coach and trainer. So, of course, you also have a lot of requests due to the importance of the topic nowadays. David, you are a thought leader in the field for many, many years with your book, Leading from Anywhere. I imagine that both of you agendas were exploding in 2020. How did that go for you, David?
Yeah, that's about right. I think at first in 2020, not a lot of people wanted to hear what I had to say, which was people were asking when the great work from home experiment started, when it was going to be over and when we were going back to the office. And as early as May or June 2020, I kept telling them, we're not, we're at least not all of us and not all of the time. We're headed for a much more flexible hybrid from anywhere future. And we ought to use this time to start practicing those skills. Jury's still out on how many people actually listen to me about that. But I think everybody agrees, yeah, that's where we're headed.
And I love that. I still remember, and I just recently wrote a post about that. One of my clients, a traditional Austrian energy company, she told me in September when I was proposing my digital leadership workshops, Barbara, this is a sandstorm and it will pass. Now, sandstorm, that were her words in German. Now, 2 years later, she finally, even pretty late, because they're facing a lot of troubles with losing employees because they're not prepared for hybrid leadership or hybrid cooperation. Anyways, they are back, and now we are adding those workshops to my offer to them. Marilena, you were in the training field, MDI, senior expert trainer and executive coach. What happened with your agenda and with the topics that you're dealing with?
Well, very similar experiences to both of you. Yeah, hybrid working and leading is not new. I've been practicing the model also for a decent 10 years. I wanted to write about competencies in terms of digital leadership, and everybody said, take a serious topic, something with a future, write about change management, do something else. That was 2008. And I was like, yeah, this might have a future. And then what I can say is that the topic per se is not new, but as you mentioned before, we have a new context and we have to deal with this. And there are a lot of impact levels, and there are a lot of people just not ready to put up with companies who are not up to the change. And then we're losing them, and then we're losing really good talents. And then there is a different party and a different fund. So very similar experiences. Yeah, let's see where the journey takes us.
Uh, Absolutely. David, if you think about your experience also pre-COVID, you wrote the book Leading from Anywhere. When was that? In what year?
So, believe it or not, Leading from Anywhere was a response to the pandemic. So, in 2016, I wrote a book called Under New Management, which talked at length about a much more flexible hybrid environment. We profiled companies that chose to do away with their offices altogether, et cetera. And so, Leading from Anywhere was kind of a circle back. I mean, I expected from 2016 on that there would be a trend and an increase in remote and hybrid work, right? But it would just be a consistent upward trend, 1 or 2% growth a year, et cetera. And then the pandemic happened, and we went in the United States, where I am, we went from about 4% of Americans working remotely to 40% overnight, right? So Leading from Anywhere was really a response to that, especially to exactly those sandstorm managers who thought, oh, this will never bothered to prepare for this. It was sort of a crash course in everything you need to know to get you up to speed right now.
Fantastic. And if you think about the context, we were already both mentioning, it is different to what was before pandemic, leading from anywhere or hybrid work, remote work, or teleworking days that you're offering. What changed? How did the game change, David? If you think about what was before and what is now?
Yeah, well, I mean, two things on the employee level. I think what changed is a lot of people who didn't think they would actually enjoyed it. They actually tried it. They were just sort of in the habit of coming to an office, to a place of work, and never took the time to figure it out. And it took, by the way, a lot of burnout, a lot of stress in that summer 2020 to get to a place where a schedule actually worked for them. And as Marlena said, they're not willing to go back to that. And so companies are struggling on the talent side. On the leadership side, I think, for the longest time, we talked about the importance of management by walking around, doing regular check-ins, doing things that in a lot of people's minds necessitated being in person. And I think a lot of leaders are actually still struggling with, how do I do that same thing? I mean, how do you do management by walking around when there's nowhere to walk around, right? And they're still sort of struggling with that. But over time, more and more of them have learned this skill over the last 2 years. And so they're kind of more prepared for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing that. Marilena, how do you see in the training industry, how did that change? Pre-pandemic, the requests that were brought to your table or to your inbox, and now after pandemic, or still in pandemic, whatever country we're talking about.
Well, to be quite honest, we worked with literally clients from all continents before and during the pandemic, because this is what we do. We like to work international. And I can add to what David mentioned. So basically, people are looking right now for more quality, and they also have the voice to state that: the quality of life, the quality of a good job, the quality of a task, and so on and so forth. So while I saw that before pandemic, a lot of people were reserved to just stand out and to speak out and to say, I cannot work with the technology. It's just not doing the job. I don't understand the strategy, and so on and so forth. Right now, we see those voices. And I think that's a good idea, because we had the problems and now it's a good time to deal with them. In the training industry, what we see right now, that we don't have to convince our clients that we can do certain topics remote, or it was that now we have to make sure that we support our clients in making the right decisions. There are topics which are suitable for a virtual or a hybrid setup, and then there are things where we really need to meet and we need to sit down. But balancing this and making sure that this happens is the great opportunity we see out there. And then I also have to be honest, in our industry, we also see a lot of failures, a lot of failed models, because something was cool, like, I don't know, learning, e-learning. Nobody's really attending those e-learning asynchronous whatever videos, but we still have them. So we're learning quite fast. Yeah, we're learning together quite fast.
But this also means that probably if we think about learning, and if I think about the virtual organizations like the real remote first organization that I work with, the role of the manager shifted. Also, when it comes to learning, when it comes to the role of the manager as a coach, and I do know this is nothing new. We have been talking about that for like decades, probably, or years at least. How do you see that, David, in your work, and also you, Marina? How do you see that organizations are supporting managers, and what should they do? Because Marilena, I could imagine it didn't happen, for example, to me. I got more trainings, but I didn't get that more coaching clients that I thought, for example, that organizations would go for more coaching support. That didn't happen to me. What happened in your portfolio, Marilena?
Actually, coaching boomed on my side. And a very nice surprise on coaching is that before this whole situation happened, companies would usually book us to coach very young leaders, not in terms of age, but in terms of their first leadership roles. And then I saw an incredible boom of executive clients, which are looking basically for a sparring partner and for support in their decision-making process. And this, I think, is fantastic. If pandemic brought a lot of crappy stuff along, this is really great because now we see that a very senior, very experienced leader blocks time in his or her calendar and says, I need to reflect. It starts to become an importance. So that means that you remember that famous, definition management versus leadership, which is like literally being taught in every golden management seminar of the 80s and 90s. This is finally happening. We finally have a distinction. We finally understand that leadership needs time, needs investment, starts with self-reflection. So my coaching business and our coaching setup really boomed, to be honest.
Fantastic. Good to hear. David, what is your experience?
Yeah, Marlena, you actually hit on something really interesting because you mentioned that they were booking it into their calendars, right? And I think that is really the make or break right now. So many that were in a management role, just to be totally honest, pre-pandemic, you had a couple scheduled meetings throughout the day, but you didn't really have to schedule the rest of your day. You could just sort of show up and put out whatever fires came up. Then we all sort of got overloaded with meetings, if I'm being honest. Like summer and fall 2020, we were just, and some people are still stuck in that. But I think there was this realization, to go all the way back to Peter Drucker in the 80s, talking about the importance of managing your calendar so that you can be that effective executive. People started going, okay, what do I actually want to do? I need to book that in. Maybe they did it because they needed the structure. I mean, it's hard from home to just suddenly remember the things that you're supposed to be doing. Maybe it helped them transition from, regardless of the reason, they realized they needed to be in control of it. And I really love seeing that demand for coaching, that demand for more personalized, and even that demand to do check-ins much more often. It took a while, but a lot of managers realized I need to create regular office hours, or I need to create something that goes on our team's calendar. And by result, we end up having more of these check-ins and more of these manager to employee coaching conversations as well. So it took like a lot of things. It took some burnout. It took some struggles. It took some getting familiar with the tools. But a lot of smart and savvy leaders are there now. The big thing is, how do I keep all of that if I end up having to come back to the office a couple days a week?
Absolutely. I think the tool that you mentioned, the 101 meetings, the check-ins with employees, is one of the strongest things for virtual organizations or for remote leadership. And it's interesting that even though also that has been, as you were saying, Marilena, for decades in the management books, we know that check-ins, that's nothing new, but we do see how important it was for virtual work. And I believe to some extent what I see with my clients is that they try to also bring back, now that they go for hybrid, they go back to the office. Maybe some of them go 3 days back, maybe some of them go 2 days back, maybe some of them have totally flexible policies, but they also bring with them these new tools and sort of a new mindset. So really profiting and learning from what was possible in the virtual space. Marilena, if you think now about the executive coachings, all the managers and C-level people that you are accompanying, what is happening with this return to the office? I do see, particularly now, also you, even though we're all working very globally. So also for me, the Austrian context where I'm from, there is a huge amount of my clients is there. What do you see is the discussion now when it comes to hybrid? How much is this still the discussion ongoing? 3-2, 2-3? Are they beyond that? Is it also taking into account a more flexible approach? Because what I always say, it's not just about the where do I work, it's also about the when do I work. And the future of work is choice. And I think this is much more a mindset than having the policy of 3-2 or 2-3, even though we know that research suggests to have that. What is it that you perceive in the organizations?
How do I put this? There are different types of perceptions and also of progress in this conversation, right? The ideal state would be we have a solution, however this looks for a company, however this serves our people, our clients, our business, and so on. That would be the ideal part. But getting there is not a linear process. It's usually a discovery process. So you have the people who said in 2020 also had clients, they have sent their hundreds of employees home for 2 weeks because they didn't want to buy them laptops or whatever. So they were hurting a bit. Some learned very fast and adapted very fast. Some didn't learn and tried to get the people back into the office, and that didn't go well. So some are struggling. Then you have people who already worked before the pandemic in a more or less remote setup. I wouldn't call it hybrid per definition, but I would say it would have been good remote, but they would have met more often and they would have handled this human factor situation in a personal, meeting, conference, whatever, and then they would work remote. And then you're people who basically, you have people who are starting from scratch and they have a lot of fears. Some already handled the legal aspects or the technological ones and so on. But bottom line, I think it's our job, because basically our job right now is to support those leaders to make the right decisions. And so what I am trying to do is I'm trying to bring them from the mindset, managing to-dos, manage performance. That's the most important thing. If they can handle managing performance, and if they make sure that this really happens, then they're going to come up with one solution or the other. So this is what I see as the biggest challenge to manage that performance. And the second biggest challenge, almost at the same level for me though, is to find those solutions which are authentic. Do not do a check-in if you don't feel like doing a check-in. It's just weird. And people are going to know that you're going to be weird and they're not really going to connect with you. Do not do a workshop unless you really feel it's going to bring you value. Don't take the next new model or whatever if you don't believe in that. Stand up to your decisions. Share the fact that you have no idea. So, make it authentic, make it less weird, and look for how to perform and how to make sure that people have what they need to work, because then they will work.
Absolutely. David, when we talk about performance, probably that's also something that you discuss in your book or in other publications that you already have. It is about how to measure performance. So we do know the whole discussion about trust, working from home, input, output management. Do you just want to see how long people are working? So what did change in organizations when it comes to how we measure performance? Because in some organizations, we still have this old mindset of 9 to 5. I want you to sit in the office. I want to see that you're online. And that's how I'm trustful, or I'm trusting that you're also working. What happened, and what would you suggest to a remote leader how to measure performance and what tools to use?
Well, I think Marlena nailed it perfectly in that idea of coaching performance. I think, what changed among good leaders and good managers, not much, right? Because they were already focused in on that idea of helping you mutually set objectives, coaching you toward what you need to do, removing the obstacles that are blocking your performance. A lot of bad managers, on the other hand, were in that mentality of, if I can see you, I know you're working, and the way that we use presence to equate to productivity. And they struggled a lot. And what I worry about as we come back, as we start to build the return to office, is I see a lot of organizations that their definition of hybrid is based on time and not task. In other words, like you said, 3-2-2, that's great. That's a good ratio. But the truth is, if you just say that, you're still going to get a lot of people who are sitting there because it's Thursday, and on Thursdays we work till 5, even though they're done, right? So what we ought to be thinking about, if we're truly in this performance mindset switch, to helping set mutual objectives and coach you through what you need to do and remove obstacles, then we ought to be looking at what tasks need to be done in office and what tasks can stay virtual. And unfortunately, I see some organizations doing that. I see a whole lot more that are just focused on nailing the percentage of time that we want people back, and then we don't actually care what they're doing. And truthfully, that mentality is probably going to lead to, by 2024, 2025, those companies will be indistinguishable from where they were in 2019, with one notable exception: they'll struggle a whole lot more to get top talent.
Absolutely. And the struggle for top talent, how is that? What is happening in organizations? Do they really face problems, or is it just something that is out there in the media and we believe that this is happening?
Yeah, well, I can only speak for the U.S. or for North America, at least right now, and it is a struggle. Here's what I'm seeing most often, and I do not recommend this. In fact, I actively recommend against this, but this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of organizations that will put remote available or remote flexible in the job description, and then during the first or second round interview, attempt to convince that person to relocate to where they are, right? In other words, flexible is so in demand, companies are straight up lying about how flexible they intend to be. And that's a very short-sighted recipe for disaster, right? Because all you're going to get is 6 months or 9 months or a year from now, you're going to get a really dissatisfied employee who's gone, who's looking for the flexibility they were actually promised. So I'm really curious to see how it's playing out in Europe. I hear stories from contacts and clients there, but not nearly as much as I know about what's going on in the US.
Absolutely. And there's also, Alina is adding to this discussion. Yeah, we need more transparency and the right tools if we want to focus more on tasks. And just transparency also adds to what you were saying, transparency about what kind of company are we. If we are a company who wants people back to the office, we need to be honest about that, because otherwise we're going to lose them anyways in the first or second week maybe. And also, thanks there, Benjamin has another comment that also adds up to what we were discussing. We see companies who try to reverse back to the old ways or never open up for remote to suffer a massive competitive disadvantage. So also Benjamin is facing or experiencing what we were talking about, the war for talents, and it hits those who are not open for remote work, and they are facing disadvantages compared to their peers who offer remote where, when possible. But we also do know that in our work, we still have organizations that you work with. They go hybrid. One manager complains about one employee who apparently is on Facebook during work time or not answering immediately the phone, and the whole company is brought back to the office. Marilena, what did you have such cases? How do you deal with that? What are the challenges when it comes to trust? Because it's a trust issue, isn't it?
Well, every crisis amplifies the good, the bad, the ugly, the surprising, right? So if you had trust in your team before the crisis, but call it however you want, pandemic crisis or chaos, just world chaos, then you kind of made it work, and then this was not a conversation anymore. But if you would have a lack of trust and a lack of transparency and a lot of hidden agendas and so on, of course, it's just not happening. So I have seen very strange situations. I have seen leaders telling their employees, so you're in quarantine, you have home office, so good luck on holiday. And those people were really working very hard and they had really good results. And how would you motivate them? I have seen people who learn very fast out of pain. I also have seen companies who do not feel the pain yet, because the numbers are still okay, and it doesn't matter if the working atmosphere is not so awesome, and why would we go for more potential? So it's a very mixed situation. But I think that even if companies are not adapting right now and they're not feeling an immediate pain, they will feel this. Maybe it's going to come later. Maybe the consequences are going to happen later. This is at least my theory.
Yeah, that's really, really great point. And I have a similar experience, I would say. We are going to, just to come back also a little bit, what we announced at the beginning. So all of you out there, there is a big conference coming up, Leadership Horizon, leaderships-horizon.com, the 2nd of June, a hybrid masterpiece. if you are in Europe or in Austria, if you want to come there in the beautiful capital of Austria, 2nd of June in Vienna, Marilena will be one of the facilitators. David will be one of our virtual keynote speakers. And I'm going to be super happy because it's the first time since the pandemic that I'm going to speak about and dance about leadership, because my keynote topic is how to dance your way into hybrid leadership. You know, I'm a passionate dancer and I have my 2 dancing experts with me on stage. So what we did is we started a challenge, right, Marilena? Alina helped us, and we started a challenge so that people can win free tickets. And it was amazing because also to all of you out there, I'm going to tag this post afterwards in this event as well. There were so many comments to the question, what is your number 1 tip on how to navigate an organization into the new work era? And we see down here, we have in total 23 comments already. And one of the last comments already said, great to read all this advice. It's fantastic. It's a potpourri of different ideas on what you can do to navigate your company into this new work era. And if you are interested to win one of the tickets, we just decided right before, there are going to be 4 tickets that you can be part of, that you can win. And it will be the deadline is tomorrow at 6 p.m. CT. I will also post that and tag that again into this event and in the post directly. But check out, the more likes you get, so it's also good to sort of share that. The more likes you get, the more probable it is that you will be among the 4 free tickets. Fantastic advice. I know that you, Marilena, you're working with a model to, to make out the most of so many advices in is it in the decision making, right, that you use that?
Yeah.
What is this about, and how could it help us?
Well, here's the thing. Theory and free advice, that's never the problem. You know the quote, if you really want to help someone, then don't offer your advice, right? Because that's everywhere. It's like we know that fruits are good for us, but then we go to the chocolate bar. We know the drill. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to support our clients in making the right decisions which are working for them in that specific situation, because otherwise things are gonna be less efficient, effective, weird, not authentic, and so on and so forth. So I think what we discussed before is still valid. You have a very ridiculous amount of knowledge and experience in terms of hybrid working and leading. You have a new context, so it's time to ask good questions. So 3 questions. Number 1, ask yourself the big topic of purpose. Do we understand the strategy? Do we know what we're doing, why we're doing? Do we reflect by our actions? Do we really translate this into our daily life? And as a leader, you have to ask yourself, am I making sure that my teams are really getting the point? So do we have this purpose? And purpose is not always, the job doesn't have to make your life amazing. It doesn't have to make you happy. But the moment you wake up on a Monday morning, you should have a very clear idea of what's going on and where you're headed. That's the first one. It's a lot of good advice to be structured in there. The second part, we talked also about people who want to come to your company more or less, who are keen on collaborating with you more or less. So do you make sure that people can grow? It's very simple. It's just one question. Do you make sure that they can grow and develop? 2 examples here for you. A very good client, very hardworking, he hardly needs us. Whenever he goes on LinkedIn to post a job offering, his crowd literally sends him like 10, 20 CVs in the IT industry. Everybody else is complaining. They don't find talent. They don't find people. But he only recruits by reputation. That's like such a weird agile stuff, right? So, ask yourself, are you really, really making sure that you lead the people, not just manage them? And then the other part is performance. Again, no flash news on a performance, but it is a new context. Can the people really perform in that new context? Is it enough transparency? Is enough support, even technical stuff? I'm looking at certain devices people are still, or programs people are working with. Not okay, not in this century. And also the David, you called this the task management. I want to call this the output-oriented leadership. It's the same idea. Are you micromanaging me, and are you giving me a ridiculous amount of micro steps, or should I get the job done and I'm empowered to decide and to get the job done? So if you structure this purpose, people, performance, then you have already a first foundation of the decision making, and then you know what works, what doesn't work, and then you can start experimenting.
Oh, this is a fantastic piece of advice that we definitely need to look into. Is there also maybe a blog article or something published on that on MDI blog? So definitely we need to tag
Yes.
that, Marilena, afterwards into the event as well. I'm also going to
Yeah.
share, of course, David's book, Leading from Anywhere, with a lot of advice. And of course, David, don't forget, or people out there, don't forget, David is going to be one of the virtual keynote speakers. So join Leadership Horizon. And we're going to have just a final round. David, one quick tip that you would say, don't give away anything because we want people to join us right in Vienna. One quick tip, the essential, or one of your the tips that you think it really works well for leaders in hybrid environments.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the thing to be focused on right now, as a lot of people are building that return to office plan, is to first of all, to recognize that the plan will change. Right? It's going to change. You're going to have the perfect one. You're going to open up. Some people are going to quit. Some people are going to find the schedule doesn't work for them. It's going to change. No matter what it currently is, by the end of this year, it'll be different. So what should you focus on then? Well, I think for an individual team leader, especially if you're not in senior leadership and you have no say in what the plan is, the thing to focus on now isn't executing the plan perfectly. It's building a team culture that will be flexible, inclusive, and will be a learning-oriented culture. And that's the bulk of what we're going to talk about at the Leadership Horizon Conference, is how do we build that team culture when not everyone's there every single day, and getting the entire team together only happens rarely, because that's what's going to be the difference between whether or not your team survives the flexibility they're going to need over the next 9 months and comes out stronger, or whether or not that flexibility ends up breaking them.
And I just love that, David. I need to share. I'm not sure if you know Liz Foslin, Liz and Molly. They are sharing amazing visuals. And I just this morning had a keynote with one of my clients, and it was more or less a similar message. What we think is that we need the perfect map now for hybrid. That is not going to work, and we won't have that, because we can have guidelines for an organization, a general direction, but even that will be changing then. And there is not the perfect solution for all teams, but there is not for one organization, but there is a solution for every team. So also make sure, and I think this has to do a lot with authenticity that you were saying also, Marilena, that we don't have, as leaders or as consultants, maybe we don't have the perfect answer, but we have an answer that we can test, verify, and see how that works and build upon that, right? Thanks so much, David. I love the idea, and team culture as an add-on. That is the way, that is one of the essential tips. Marilena, if you think about training, executive coaching, what would be your one piece of advice if you think about HR managers? I just read a blog post, horrible, about a study that HR managers are also in a super burnout. We're always thinking about the managers that are in the burnout, but also HR has to face a lot of struggles. Now, what is your advice there?
Yeah, you're right. I think the HR industry is very challenged right now. I am working with the board of directors and with the HR board member of a very big company in Europe. They have thousands of employees. And what I'm doing with their team is I'm making sure that we cover some good bases. Number one, as David said, don't wait for the perfection. Just go out. Done is better than perfect. That right now, it's the moment to find out. And I know that this is difficult because people are exhausted. I mean, it's a lot of change. If you put the quote on LinkedIn, how change is amazing, we all agree. But if you have to change like every day, there's something new, there's a new adaptation, it can be exhausting. So, be patient, be good to yourself, cut the perfection. That's one thing we do. And the other thing, what we do is we try to connect the HR teams as much as possible with the business, so that all the parts understand the values which can be delivered and the synergies which can be created. Because people are so busy executing operative stuff that they forgot to talk what's more important, how can we do that, how can we share the value, and so on and so forth. So we're trying to make them more connected in the metrics. And I think if you can try those two things out, then you're good. And obviously, if you need help, there is an amazing industry of consultants. You don't have to come to us. You should, because we're really good, especially the people in this live. But I know that there are a lot of colleagues in our industry which are really doing good work at supporting this kind of processes. Don't be afraid to go and get help and get support, because it is a change process at the end of the day. It's super emotional, super exhausting, super rewarding, but it's change.
Absolutely. And I think I have this quote here that I have it always here with me in StreamYard, so I wasn't that quick to point it. Imperfect action is better than no action. No action is a choice. And I think this is also a very good sort of last statement here as well. We need to experiment and see what works for our team, for our organization, and then for our team. And also always constantly come back and revise what is working properly and what not. Thank you so much to both of you, Marilena and David. It was a tremendous pleasure having you here. To all of you out there, we're going to tag you again in the post and share the competition to win a free ticket. Leadership Horizon Conference is happening on the 2nd of June in Vienna or in the virtual space, whatever you prefer as your way of participating. And try to get one of the free tickets by sharing your number one tip. And Marilena, we will go through all the comments, right, and make something out of that, because there's a lot of potential there. Thank you very much to both of you. And well, I meet you backstage because, virtual cocktails are prepared at the virtual bar. So see you there. Bye.
Thank you so much. All the best, everybody listening. We see so many lovely comments. All the best to all of you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you all for watching.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you very much, Virtual Space Hero community. A tremendous pleasure again being here. We have here already comments floating in from Alina. No action is a choice. I like that. This was amazing. Thanks a lot, Lucrezia, for being with us, and also Martin here. And action is there, so therefore also a choice. Absolutely. Thank you very much for being with us, and don't forget to check out our competition to win one of the free tickets, 2nd of June in Austria. And you know that we on the webpage, we have already the guest lineup until October ready. Yeah, I can't believe it either. So it's like really crazy. Until October, all the guests are already online. So check that out. And if you think that somebody else should be on the page, should be on our show, let me know and get in touch. And I'm happy to connect with you or with one of your contacts. And with that, don't forget to become a virtual space hero and enjoy your morning, afternoon, or evening. Good night. Bye.